Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you're watching on YouTube, you can find out more about what we do at officehours.global. First hour is general discussion. Any questions that you have around virtual or media production are fair game. Second hour is usually something we want to spend a little bit more time on. And today we're going to be talking about our setups. So talking a little bit about that and breaking down how people are approaching being on Office Hours. I think a lot of times you see these basic setups, and you don't yet get to see what it takes to have them. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later today. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the questions. Mitchell, what do we have?
Good morning, Alex. Our first question is from Paul Wallace, Valhus, in Austin, Texas. What's the most versatile light? He prefers nanolight that has color effects and remote control via the Stream Deck.
I think that the only one the NAN light that you can use for that are going to be the mixed panels. I think that's the first level of NAN light. That's what I'm using behind me here. I don't have control over it right now, but that's the first time you have DMX. So if you want to control it from your Stream Deck or anything else, you're going to need a DMX. And so you have to look for an entry level light that will support DMX. Go ahead, Mitchell.
I have the DMX controller, but the thing you've got to watch out for is that the more recent iterations of the mixed panels won't talk to the older DMX controller. It will talk to the.
Are you talking about the DMX
remote
controller or Bluetooth controller? Because the DMX is just DMX.
It's a wireless DMX controller that you put online, and it plugs into your Ethernet, and it has DMX controls on it. But it's the one that has the Wi-Fi control for the NAN lights. So there's an issue with that not working with all the more recent builds of the system.
Yeah, all I would say is that what I use for DMX is just wired. so you got to know whether it's 5-pin or 3-pin, but but that's I think it's 5-pin on the mixed panels. But then you have something like an NTEC, that can or a DMX King that's going to convert your Ethernet to the analog essentially signal. Go ahead, Bill.
Nobody said anything about a budget, so if I only could get one light, I'd get a Light Panels Gemini. They're around about $3,500. They're an incredibly versatile light that is so cool that you can go into an office with windows outside and actually light an interview with one light.
And it makes those hundreds of dollars on the mixed panel seem just like a tiny little drop in the bucket. It's great for you to add some context to that, Bill. Thank you very much. All right, let's go to the next. Go ahead, Mitchell. You're going to say something.
I was just going to say I've got the Astra, and I love the light panels. They invented LED lighting systems, by the way.
They did, absolutely. Next question.
David Brady, New York, New York. Revisiting Bluetooth trackers to help track mobile Zoom room carts around the building. And okay, my keys too. Besides the Tile and Apple AirTag, what are other leaders and benefits of them?
I don't know of any other leaders. I think those are the two that are probably 95% of the market at this point. There are, in industrial areas, what you want to look for is Bluetooth LE. So Bluetooth LE is going to be the other thing that you see in construction sites and so on and so forth. They use those to track large equipment, sometimes equipment systems, and they're plus or minus about 3 feet. The big advantage of the AirTag as a solution is that you don't need a closed network to find it. So the AirTag is basically using anybody's phone, like anybody's network, to know where it is, and so that gives it a huge advantage. Tile also is doing some of that, but the problem is that Tile's market is much smaller, so it is more spotty. But if you're going to build it into an entire building, you could use Bluetooth LE to calculate that. It's a little bit of a legacy format now. The difference between Bluetooth and what the AirTags are doing, or what they're built to do, is the AirTags will use ultra wideband or are capable of using also ultra wideband. That reduces that increases the accuracy from about plus or minus 3 feet to plus or minus 10 inches. So it's a fair bit more resolution, though it has a lower range than Bluetooth. Go, Bill.
Just want to emphasize what Alex said about the fact that the magic of the AirTag system is that every Apple phone out there can become a locator for it. And so if you leave something in a restaurant, somebody undoubtedly will.
Whoop, I think we might have lost Bill there for a second. Whoop. And so we'll
walk in with an iPhone. And they've managed these secure.
We lost you there, Bill. I don't know if you're...
Okay. Oh, you lost me? Yeah, I'm having trouble today. I may have to drop out after some. Hopefully I'll stick around.
Okay. Okay, great. Let's go to the next question.
Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas, back again with a question. Without venturing into politics, President Biden gave a speech outdoors last night, and there as a guy with a bullhorn fairly prominent throughout. How could this have been minimized via the event technology?
Go ahead, Noah.
The first thing is starting with the proper mic with good off-axis rejection, right? If you have an omnidirectional, it's going to pick up sounds from all over, where if you have a very directional mic or a boom mic, that will cut off a lot of the exterior sounds around the presenter. You also may consider an in-ear monitor type system, kind of like what a lot of us are wearing, that has closed off, like rejection, essentially, like noise reduction, kind of like wearing earplugs, but you can still hear. Obviously, they do that a lot for music. So I don't know if they were necessarily expecting that for this kind of event, but it might be worth considering.
Go ahead, Javier.
And also for the transmission, remember when the South African World Cup was happening, the vuvuzelas were making like a lot of noise, and Waves put out like a process chain that you can put to your system that take out some of the vuvuzela sound. So maybe a tailored made with the spectrum analyzed and everything, you can like try to dial it down for the transmission part of the event.
I think that's your first answer on our panel, Javier. Well, welcome. It's good to have you. What can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
I'm a sound engineer. I have a production company. We do digital advertisement here in Mexico City. Some animation, some live action, like mini crews from 3 people to big crews like for 60 people. So all kind of productions.
Well, you look good and sound good, so we hope you come back. You keep coming back.
I will. Thank you.
All right. Excellent. Mitchell?
I seem to remember, Alex, you telling us that the 2 mics generally, or there's sometimes a third, that the president speaks into are completely different mics. Maybe you can tell us a little more about that.
I mean, I'll tell you the best way to manage this problem is to not do it in a public area. I mean, this is not really a mic problem. This is a logistics problem. So when you do political talks, I mean, for the last 30 years, when we want to do a political talk that's going to be broadcasted, you move it into a private area where you have complete control over people that are in the event. I mean, it's a really simple problem that really became popular in the late 80s, early 90s, which was that you don't have to do it in a public area, especially if you're broadcasting. This is an unforced error by the event team. It's not really. It'd be very, very hard because the frequency of that bullhorn is going to be very close to a voice, because it is a voice. It's going to be a little bit higher. It's going to be extremely hard. It cuts through. The reason that it's a bullhorn is that it's designed to cut through everything so that everyone can hear it. That includes the microphone. And so the fact that you provided a place where people would have access to do that is just unforced error. Like, it's just really, really poor planning. And so, the thing is if you're going to do a broadcast, you do it somewhere where you can control the entire environment. No one's going to know. I mean, no one's going to care where you are to have that conversation, and people get caught up in the imagery of something without really thinking through the fact that someone's going to ruin their entire event because they made it, a wider access. You can't tell people in a public area not to be there. So you're going to be stuck with what you created in that environment. But in a private area, you have complete control. You have security control. You have, all those things can be managed. And so I just think that it was just really poor planning.
I recall you saying that of the 2 mics that the president has, one's a cardioid and the other's a dynamic.
Someone did that. I didn't say that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You would switch to the dynamic mic,
but it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't. Okay. With a bullhorn, it wouldn't matter.
Never mind.
Like it would just cut right through it. And that's because it's designed to cut right through it. Like it is built for what it did. Go ahead, Hasmukh.
Yeah, and that was Javier's comment about vuvuzelas. 2010, we gave the world vuvuzelas, and I think everybody hated it.
It was not a very popular thing among broadcasters. It was definitely a water cooler discussion about how horrible they were. Go ahead, Noah.
I don't know if you'd want to do this, but the thought of like using some sort of drum screens, those clear plastic screens to help reject some of those sounds. But yeah, Alex has it to the point of getting to the root cause, which is controlling that space for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things. I only am a little bit more. There's a lot of times when clients want us to do events at places that aren't built for what we're doing them in. I think probably 80% of my events don't need to be where they were. And you end up spending a lot of money to get a lower quality. So you spend more money to get less quality because you decided to do it at a venue that wasn't going to support what you wanted to do. And so this is a conversation that I'm very familiar with. So, and not necessarily with politics, but just with like, why are we doing this here? Like, why is it here as opposed to somewhere else if the broadcast is what matters? And you have bad sound, you have bad lighting, you have, hard to place cameras, all these things become more of an issue. So I think that that's the challenge, and they just picked a bad place. Next question.
And it's from Robert Shoji in Los Angeles, California. Can linear time code recorded on the audio track of a DSLR be decoded by Final Cut Pro?
Go ahead, Mitchell.
I'm sorry I don't know that much about Final Cut, but most editing systems would allow you to accomplish using one of the audio channels. I know you can do it in Premiere, so it sounds like it's a good go there.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yes.
How do you use it as time code in Final Cut?
Basically, Final Cut Pro recognizes at least 7 different forms of time code. It'll take LTC, it'll take Sony, like camcorder time code. If you can get that in there, and usually it's embedded in the tape, then it will parse it if you can get the signal to it.
The question is that if you put it in the audio track, so say you can't embed it into the metadata, if that time code is in the right channel, can Final Cut derive that? We used to use a program, I believe it was by Video Toolshed, that you would put the file in there and then would rewrite that to time code based on one of the audio tracks. I don't remember what it was called, but it was something like, it was LTC convert or something else like that would do this because we couldn't do it in Final Cut. Final Cut couldn't look at like the right channel or left channel and identify it and turn it into time code. So has that changed, Bill?
I don't know. To be honest with you, I assume that because I read it in the spec and it said LTC was one of the forms of timecode it will read, but the hardware interface, you're right, needs to be gotten correctly. And I would imagine that is something that would be a little init or some kind of a little sidecar file that would parse it. I've never had to do it, thankfully. I haven't used linear timecode in forever.
Yeah, we did it in the past. And again, we had to use the third-party app to do it. Go ahead, Javier.
I'm not sure if Final Cut can do it. I think Tentacle Sync Studio, from the same company that makes the Tentacle Sync boxes that are like wireless timecode syncing, they have like a software that can read all the metadata and maybe and import it and put it with a video. I haven't done it, but I know some editors have. So maybe you can, whoever wants to do it, can look into that software.
That's great. Next question.
Nathan G. Sammy in Singapore has a question. Looking for a simple HDMI media player for the A10 Mini. Was using the Mika spec player previously. Can't find it anymore.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Our very own Jonas Dottel has the Playout B, which would be my recommendation. It's just a great piece of software that can run on Windows, Macs, and I believe on Linux also.
Yeah, the Mika, I have one of those, or Mika or whatever spec, and they're great, but they're not going to show up as an ATEM, they're not going to show up as a hyperdeck, which is exactly what Mitchell was talking about there. So our own Jonas Dottel has created a Playout B, and it's a Raspberry Pi that's going to show up as a hyperdeck, and you're going to be able to plug it right in. It's really inexpensive and super stable. Next question.
Khalid Al-Lumajah from Hassa, Saudi Arabia. Hey, Alex, I came across this all-in-one live streaming device from a Chinese company that I want to share with Office Hours community. Do you think this could be a step in the right direction? And there's a link to it.
So I had a chance to look at this. Wow. It is really cool. It's a really cool app. I don't know if we can put this up or not, but it is. So basically what it is it's Guy, you should look at this. This is something that is really interesting. Now, I don't know whether it will work in anything other than Chinese. The one thing you have to understand is that, the Chinese industry for selling on live streams is like, I think the last number I heard was like $60 billion a year. Like it's an incredible industry of doing live streams and talking about products. And so they're trying to figure out how do we get our products and how do we do a professional, they have the same problem we have. How do we do a professional, basically QVC. So what you're seeing is it's organized towards QVC style. I can put my little watches up at the bottom. I can be talking about it and talk about how great it is. And they really want it. So it's an all-in-one. It's kind of like the all-in-one studio that Guy has, except that it's designed for 9x16. You set it down. It has, you plug it in, and it's because it's Android. I believe that this is the case because it's Android. It's showing up as a phone, to the different services, and so it is an Android system, but it is all built to stream right to those services. It looks. I mean, I don't know if it'll work or not, but it looks genius. Like this would be something that. It looks really well designed. You can see it has all the basic production that you would need, again, for sales. That's what it's built for. And so it's something that at some point we should do a second hour if we had someone that knew what they were looking at or knew enough about the Chinese market. The Chinese sales market over live streaming is just like looking into the sun. Like everybody I've talked to about it is just they're just moving so much product through live streaming. They're about a decade ahead of us, or at least 2 or 3 years ahead of us doing this. It's just amazing. And so anyway, so this looks like so I'm glad you posted it. I had not seen it. We've talked about devices like this. Pretty amazing. Next question.
From Noah Sargent in Fullerton, California, and also on the panel here with us, Sony is soon to, pardon me, Alec, I got to look, there it is. Sony is soon to announce an E-mount PTZ pan-tilt zoom camera next Tuesday. Any fun insights on the 4 new cameras we can talk about?
Go ahead, Noah.
Yeah, I'm sorry I missed the conversation yesterday or a couple days ago, whenever it was. But yeah, super excited for an E-mount PTZ if this comes out. It sounds like from what I've read, 4 models might be available. And yeah, if we can switch out lenses, I'm sure they'll have something specific to that camera as well. And I'm curious about like payload for the motors and all that kind of fun stuff. So we'll see.
Yeah, they seem pretty excited about it. I got the notice of that, and it says cinematic, so we're hoping that we're going to see. This could be a PTZ with a Super 35. If they put out a PTZ with a Super 35, it changes the whole market. Like it is the PTZ market will be completely transformed. And because I don't think that anyone's. Now, I don't know what the price is going to be, but that's the challenge. But a lot of Sony's PTZs, they've got to be thinking about their other PTZs. So if you look at the BRC 900 and 1000, those are kind of in the $10,000 range. I doubt that they're going to do a Super 35 that's less than that, because that's their kind of built-in market there. So, but I think that, a Super 35, right now, if you want to do Super 35, you're putting a camera onto an external rig, you're putting all the stuff together. That kind of starts at $15,000 or $20,000. So something in the $8,000 to $12,000 range, I think, would move really fast. And if they're able to give us we saw the Canon does this a little bit with a more dynamic range. The $5,000 Canon gives us more dynamic range, but it is still a 1-inch chip. And so it's not 4/3, it's not Super 35. So if they're able to deliver a Super 35 chip, with more dynamic range and more of a filmic kind of approach to it, using maybe even some of the, the Sony compression that they use in the Venices and so on and so forth. If they're able to do something like that, I think it'd be really interesting. So we'll see. It's a pretty powerful option if that's the case. But that's all we're just gleaning it from an announcement. Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, I don't know if I get too excited unless you have deep pockets, because at the end of the day, it's physics, it's glass. So if you have that big of a sensor, you need to have an element that can, bring that in. So this lens alone is $2,500, and it's not that much range, 28 to 135 f4. So you're going to be looking at these caliber of lenses. So unless you have deep pockets, you're probably going to still want some of the older PTZ cameras that can do 20x or 30x, because 30x on a large sensor like that's a box camera lens. So we'll see how it all plays out.
It depends on what you're using PTZs for. So I think that if you're using PTZs the way that they've been traditionally used in the back of the room, I think that you're absolutely correct. I think that if you're looking at PTZs for your next studio, that's all going to be the distance that we are from here to there. I would love, I would be tempted to replace what I have now. The only problem is the color and everything else, but I'd be really tempted to replace what I have now if I had a PTZ at Super 35, and I think that a lot of YouTubers, creators, small studios, everything, the real advantage of Super 35 on a PTZ inside of a studio. So I think Guy is 1,000% correct that at an event, a PTZ in the back is going to be problematic. for this. This is not what this camera will do. What this camera will do is I want to put it in a complicated place for a film shoot. I want to put it in my studio. And the big advantage of a Super 35 over a 2/3 inch sensor, 1/2 inch sensor, 1 inch sensor is the depth of field gets a lot shorter. And what that does is it makes your whole studio feel bigger. So your entire room, your studio, everything else feels a lot bigger. And for a starting creator, that doesn't matter. But some of these creators out there are using some pretty big cameras. they're when they get into the higher altitudes, they're using RED cameras and other things like that. And being able to do their live streams and have it look the same way as it looks when they shoot the other stuff would be valuable. Noah.
Yeah, and I actually am on the FS5 as my primary camera. So I'm in the Sony world. I own 3 sets of the 28 to 135, the one guy was showing. And there's also the upgraded version, which is the 18 to 110, which I also have 3 of those lenses. Mm-hmm. Each set of those, or each lens, I should say, is about 4 pounds. So as far as like having that E-mount lens fit the new PTZ, I would be surprised if it did, even though I'd love that because, I have tens of thousands of dollars worth of that glass. So I'm assuming they'll have some sort of other compact zoom that would fit that. But also to Guy's point, the larger the sensor you get, the less zoom ratio you have. So those lenses we just mentioned are about 5 or 6 to 1, I believe. But a traditional PTZ, because of the smaller sensor, you have a 20x or a 30x, 30 to 1 type zoom, right? And so those are all things to consider as well. For me, I would probably still stick to a operated, camera for the close-up shot, and then move to a PTZ for a wide or for a reverse shot in those scenarios. And then I would love to see some a Super 35 PTZ for like a home kit, but really even going up to like a medium format. I know that sounds a little crazy, but to have something like Alex was just explaining with the depth of field for a small space would be really cool.
I mean, one of the big things is that we would if it was Super 35, even at 10 grand, we would replace what we're using now in a heartbeat, for our remote kits for this, because having a Super 35 with a PTZ that I can move around, my clients don't want anything less than Super 35. Like the depth of field, the look, everything else. If they're going to spend extra money on it, they expect that level of. I just did an event earlier this week with an LF. So it is. That was maybe not enough. Anyway, go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, you could do that now. You could for the last year, this has been available. This is the Data Video PTR10, which gives you a 4 kilogram payload, and this image shows it with the BGH1. This is a tilt-to-nucleus motor, so you got the pan and tilt on the device itself. That's the PTR10, and then if you get the ZEC2 kit, that adds the nucleus, and then if you have light controls, that's what controls this. And if you have a Panasonic camera, they have a special cable that it lets you adapt, and now you got the Z for the zoom, depending again on the lens. But these lenses again get pretty big, pretty quick. But this is already out on the market if you want to use it with your Blackmagic and not have to mess around with all that color that we've been talking about for a while. This is existing. I have one if you want to borrow it. It's in my studio.
How much is it?
This is $21.99, and then you need a controller. So the controller that I have is, I think it's about $1,200. It's or $1,600. It's this controller is the one that I have. This one here.
It's $2,100, correct?
If you
for the PTR10 by itself, yeah.
If you send it down, I'll test it. If you send it down, I'll test it.
Okay, I'll send it down.
If I want to keep it, I'll buy it from you. I think that the issue is a lot for us, and for a lot of people is, and I used to own telemetrics heads. So it's like I had a lot of telemetrics heads, and we put, that was a thing that we were really happy with, but it was always a little fiddly, and you have lots of little things integrating. Once you get it set up, it's great. And we would use them every day. They're really, really, having that there, and we really love the Super 35 with the PTZs. But I think that an all-in-one solution is something that, we have people who were like, yeah, that looks great, but they'd still go to the 150, or they'd still go to and there are a couple of other advantages, like for instance, and I have no idea what Sony's going to do, but if they are able to copy a little bit of what Panasonic has done, they have to, if you're releasing a PTZ above $5,000, you have to look very closely at the 150, because the telemetry of the 150 is super interesting. That it can hand you back that information, and it's handing you back focal length and so on and so forth. So I think that that's going to be, from a digital set perspective, that becomes super important to what everybody's doing. And we have no idea whether Sony will think that far out or not, but hopefully they will. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, I'm intrigued with your idea to send it out on a remote system, but wouldn't your remote system have a teleprompter, and what kind of restrictions would you run into trying to get? Pardon me?
They sometimes have teleprompters on them. Yeah, I mean, they're not always that way. Sometimes we are just putting the monitor below or above the, usually below. Above, it looks like there's a tendency that some people have of looking over people's heads, and above doesn't look as good, because it's usually, it's a symptom of some other stuff. So people tend to not want to have people look like they're looking over the head. They'll look under, because we're kind of used to that now. So we put monitors right below the monitor. And if you make it small, the eye contact's pretty close. It's not as good, but we've definitely done that. And the big thing is that it lets you make fine adjustments. Someone moves, they move in, they move out, they move over, and now we can make subtle adjustments to make that actually work.
I was thinking that maybe you could find a way to put it inside your prompter, like with a 360 link.
So Prompter People makes a PTZ head, a PTZ prompter, and it's just a much bigger box, for the glass. So the glass has got a wider aperture, and it's got a closed kind of tetrahedron kind of thing on the back. And we've put those into studios as well with PTZs. And so there is ways to do it. But again, you would need it to be all in one compact. You wouldn't be able to do it we can't put our telemetrics head in there. We had to put, I think BRC 900s were the ones that we used at the time. Next question.
And Noah's back with another question for us. I just upgraded to a Blackmagic 6K from my studio setup. Is there a way to save the shading preset? I tried to save startup state, but it doesn't recall shading from what I've seen.
Go ahead, Hasmukh.
Yeah, I've been doing the same. I hope I understand the question correctly. I was also shading the camera through the ATEM software control, and I had a similar problem. And now I do all my settings for the camera on the camera itself, and then use the Bluetooth app, and I save the settings in the Bluetooth app, so I can always recall those settings, and that's been the way I do it now.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
No, we were talking about this very same issue on After Hours a couple of days ago, and somebody had mentioned, sorry, I don't remember, that if you go into the camera control in the ATEM and just wiggle one of the settings, it somehow comes back instantly. But without doing that, it doesn't necessarily bring it back.
My experience is it comes back for that variable. So each variable you touch, it will come back to where it was. If you just move it, you wiggle it a little bit, it's going to say, oh, hey, I'm going to now control the aperture. Oh, I'd like to control the color again too. I will say that the best way to do this is to build a LUT that you like. It's not that hard in Resolve to, you basically capture the raw data from in your camera, load it into Resolve, go into the color space, build the conversion the way, make you look the way you want to, and then you right click on the clip and export out a 33-point LUT or whatever, and then load it into the camera. Then it's always going to be the way you want it. And then you're only making fine adjustments. So it's mostly what you want, and then you're making fine adjustments when you're there. I will say that I kind of copied Nigel in the sense that you'll notice that my color, for better or worse, changes often. And it's because I'm fiddling with it. Like I'm fiddling, I'm going to fiddle with this, I'm going to fiddle with that. And so I'm constantly fiddling with my color. And in some shows I succeed, in some shows I fail. But I'm constantly playing with it. And I find that having Omniscope open, being able to open up Omniscope on my computer, it'll, even while I'm in Zoom, I can have Omniscope running, set the switcher as an input. And now I can sit there and look at my scopes and make sure my skin is sitting on the line and doing all the things that I need to do. And so I find that tweaking it all the time has made it so I don't really care. Like I don't really care what it's set to. I can get back to it, or get back to something that I'm happy with relatively quickly. But the more permanent way to do it is with a LUT. Go ahead, Noah.
I'd love to see an after hours lab around shading the 6K. It seems like such a popular camera for us in our space.
Even a second hour would be fine.
Yeah,
just talking about it.
Yeah, get Charles on or something. But It seems like a huge miss, though, as far as the software and the control. Obviously, I've been on bigger switchers before, and I haven't tried shading with the 6K, so might just be my ignorance. But it seems like that would be something it could recall, and I don't know why it's not doing that.
Yeah, I'm not certain either. Go ahead, Hasmukh.
Yeah, I've been frustrated with the ATEM, even though I save the startup state, or even if I export the settings and recall it, the ATEM just frustrates me. But coming back to the LUT that you mentioned, Alex, I am using a LUT in my settings at the moment as one of the settings. So are you saying that you can save all the settings
Well, you're not
in
saving
a
all the
separate
settings.
LUT?
What you're doing
Say
is
again?
you flatten all the settings. You reset. You don't want the camera to have any settings at all. Well, it doesn't really matter. So all the settings you have with the ATEM don't really affect the LUT. The LUT sits on those settings sit on top of the on top of the LUT. So the LUT is like my LUT right now. I think is going to extended video or whatever. Extended, is kind of where I go because it gives me a little more dynamic range to crush.
Right. Yeah,
and then but you would make that LUT that's going to convert from Blackmagic to some version of 709. It's going to be, so basically you're going to go into Resolve and you're going to put on a color space transform and you're going to say, I'm starting with a Blackmagic and I'm starting with, a Blackmagic color space and I'm moving to a 709. Color space. So you set that and then you go back to your first node. I mean, Charles would do it in a much more complex way. What I do is go back to the first node and I start playing with everything until I'm happy. so I only have two. Mine only have two nodes. When I get stuff from Charles, it's a lot more nodes than what I do. I don't really know what Charles does there. But I'm not a colorist. But I play with it until I'm happy with it in the first node, and then after that, I can save that out as a LUT. And now that can be loaded into the camera.
So with my setup, one of the built-in LUTs is part of my settings. So that's how I'm using it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and right now, I mean, your challenge is that you're not quite fully. Your dynamic range is a little low, so you're not. It's not. Your blacks aren't perfectly black, and it doesn't have quite so there's something going on there. So we should play with it at some point, where there's a little lower contrast than what it could be. So that's always the challenge.
I'll go back to my mentor.
Well, and what I would do is that again, when you look at Omniscope, those things become really obvious because in Omniscope, you'll see that is, let me see if I can't do it because I get a video loop when I try to do it in the way I have this set up right now. So I'll work on trying to.
I have Omniscope, so I'll fire that.
But what'll happen is in that scope, you're going to see the black levels sitting much higher than 0. And so, if you grab onto your lift then and just pull it down until it's just above 0. Now you don't want to go into 0, that'll crush the blacks. But you want to go down towards 0 so that it'll create more an apparent more definition. Then you want to look at those highlights that you might have, and sometimes you can use a card. You're going to pull that gain up until remember that the lift scales from the white and the gain scales from the black. And so you're pulling it up that way, and then the gamma is moving the middle back up and down, and so you just kind of figure out where those things need to sit, and then you start playing with color. So anyway, that's how I approach it. Again, we should probably bring Charles and have him do it again. Next question.
Next question is in from me, and I'm asking, is there a difference between the Extremes front panel duration switch and the rate box on the software control?
Go ahead, Noah.
The difference is the linearity or the amount of flexibility you have to control the speed or the duration of the transition, right? So the hardware itself has a 0.5 seconds, 1.5, and 2 second transitional buttons, right? So that basically queues up the duration or the amount of time it takes to auto dissolve or auto transition between the preview and the program window. So in the software control, you can go in and set the exact number of frames that you want. If you want 10 frames, if you want 60 frames, or et cetera, right? Obviously, the hardware mimics that, but it's only limited to those 4 presets.
Good, Mitchell.
You get the star for answering correctly. A little indirectly, because here's the hang up. Is that the duration is in seconds on the front panel buttons, and if you go into the rate panel in software, it is frames. So if you type 1.5, it's in 1.5 frames. So we we were playing around with that. I mean, Eric and Josh and I on After Hours, and we discovered a number of anomalies, and we also learned that one frame is a cut. There is no time involved in that. And we also, once again, confirmed that the sting button on the Extreme does absolutely nothing, just so you all know.
Yeah, I meant to correct that. I was looking through that yesterday. I said that, I know what it should do, and then there's not really any way. There's some hacks that people have done where they create a macro that goes to every frame to do the transition. So you could hack it, but you still wouldn't use the sting button. So it sounds like it was wishful thinking. Like
no
you have to build the hardware.
$1 bill going to you, Alex.
The funny thing is that this is what happens when you have hardware and you're guessing, oh, we should be able to do that later. And then you just don't have the memory or you don't have whatever. So they had to make the board before they finish the software, and the software is not able to do the thing. Again, the thing that I would love is for Blackmagic to just, I realize I don't need them to take away all these buttons. I just need them to all be addressable. What I need to be able to do is open up some kind of control and then redefine all the buttons, because I'm not using 90% of them. And it'd be great to have like all kinds of like hits and things and all kinds of things that I want to do with it. I think that's something they could actually program. That's a software solution to solve that problem. It's an interesting puzzle. Go ahead, Noah.
I was going to say, so the reason, at least that I've seen, the reason why it has duration instead of a frame rate there in the hardware versus in the software where it is frames is if you're at 24 frames, 30 frames, 60 frames, right? It's consistent across the board. So that's why you see that difference between the two. And
if you type 1:05, you will get 1 second in 5 frames. Like if you type it in, you just can't hit 1.5. But if you hit 1: something or other, you're going to get seconds and frames. So you can define it in seconds and frames. Next question.
Next question in from Chris Widener in Lafayette, Indiana. Chris asks, Matterport Access Gimbal Stabilizer for smartphone camera rotating mount. Would this work with the iPhone for interior scans? Or what kind of scan distance is reliable detailed?
Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, I bought one of these. I think Alex bought one as well. Did you ever open yours up, Alex? They're pretty cool.
Still sitting in a box.
It's still sitting in a box. Okay.
I have a tendency when I'm behind on things not to open new toys, because then I lose 4 hours working on them. And so it's still sitting there going, when you finish getting all the office hours stuff turned over to Zoom and everything else, and other teams are doing it, you're allowed to open the box. And so I haven't opened the box yet.
So here's what it looks like when you actually open the box and get
when you actually open the box, not let it just sit there.
So I took it just to the office and I made a quick scan. And so you can see it gives you that dollhouse view, and then you could tag things. If you have a team, you can put little notes and things like that. And let me make this full screen. So then you could see that you could, move around. So this one's pretty smooth for what it is. And one of the cool things that I didn't know that you could do is go to the add-ons, and then in here, if you need like an E57 file or one of these high-density point clouds, you can pay for it. So this is how they get you. It's 2 scans for free, $10 a month if you want to do, I think it's 10 scans. But then this is also pretty cool, is if you're scanning locations, you can put them in Street View. So for Google, like here's our store now, if I go to see photos, the scan that I did with that appears in this left side here. So now viewers can take virtual tours, and I haven't scanned like the whole building, but this is still pretty neat that you can use the Matterport for that. And then we used it also on that wedding shoot, and I didn't have the actual unit with me, so I just handheld it. and that's not a great idea, because here's what happens. So here's Napa where we did Carneros. The benefit of scanning this location, and I know Paul had asked if we could do this outdoors. You can use it outdoors with your phone. So one of the cool things we were trying to figure out is how far is the distance from where the bride was going to step to where the camera was. So then we were able to grab the measurement tool, and you click this little plus button, you find your spot, and then you can pull it, and you can see that that's 36 feet. So if I spin it all the way around, I think I can. It was 100 feet. Let me get all the way to where Greg was standing. Oh, yeah. So there's 85 feet, it says, to where Greg's standing there. But you can see that it works. It works pretty well. You do need to have Lidar to get exact measurements. Otherwise, it's going to not be totally precise. But pretty cool for $79.
Go ahead, Noah.
I wonder if we could see something like this with acoustics. Like my church needs acoustical treatment. So if you had some sort of, LiDAR scanned, data, you can send that to a specialist who basically can build out a custom system for acoustic paneling of like, oh, this needs to go here and you need to treat this wall with this much paneling and et cetera.
You can. It's expensive. So there's basically 3D simulators. And so when they build a giant new theater, these models are brought in and they define the surfaces and they define a lot of the other bits and pieces, and then they run simulations. Now, will it be identical to what it will happen in the real world? No. But will it get close enough for you to have a pretty good idea that your geometry is going to work? Yes. And so, the software that does this is pretty detailed as far as what you're defining on the surfaces from that process. But they wouldn't be able to take what you scanned. They'll take what you scanned and then build a 3D model of with that data and a tip and then be able to figure out how to treat it. Next question.
Peter John Golden from Santiago, Chile. How long does it take to update the product links in Discord that was mentioned yesterday?
I have no idea. I didn't even know we did that. so I think it's great, but I don't know. There could have been a disruption yesterday. When I'm teaching somebody how to use office hours, or not how to use office hours, but how to use. I was showing Mark, the owner of 090, how some of the features and so on and so forth. A lot of times I just grab all the questions and move them over, and so I move them around and stuff like that, so I can populate the space so that I could show him how we do some of the stuff that we're doing. And so I may have thrown the system into disarray. So that might have been what caused it. Although it shouldn't affect the event chat, but it might have affected some parts of the archive. Next question.
And it's from David Barton in Memphis, Tennessee. My organization needs to attend a large meeting, but we won't be the Zoom host. Other than losing control of muting spotlights, what do we lose by not being the host?
Well, I think that the big thing is that you can't make other people co-hosts. I know that that's one of the bits and pieces. I don't know what the other limitations of the co-host are, other than making other people co-hosts. Go ahead and starting and stopping the meeting, Guy.
Yeah, I wonder if they have a higher resolution account as well. If they don't have a 1080p account and you do, that would be resolution that you lose. If you have a Facebook portal, you could bump it to at least 720p. I like to keep one of those things around, or Zoom Room will do it if it's kind of an emergency thing. You could ping me, and I have a spare Zoom Room sitting next to me where I can just bump somebody's meeting real quick. If you ping me in Discord and I'm available, I could probably up-res your meeting pretty quick.
Yeah, and that's a great way to do it right at the last minute. Know that anybody can request 720p and get it immediately now. So that's Zoom will upload. I created a new account this morning. So for office hours, I went in, of course, asked for, and they said, no, we can't do 1080, but we can do 720. so that was a brand new account, pro account, not business account. I made a request and it was updated in 10 minutes. So 720 is no longer a problem. You will not get it unless you ask for it, which means that 95% of the population doesn't know that they can do that, which is good for the internet. It's good for Zoom, everything else. But if you know to ask for it, you'll get it. Again, I did it this morning and got it in minutes. Go ahead, Josh.
Well, the other thing is that co-hosts can't propagate other co-hosts. So anyone that needs to be blessed with co-host, you have to have host privileges.
Yep. Hasmukh?
Yeah, when you say ask Zoom, do you create a ticket online through the system? Yeah, okay.
Any question for Zoom to do something for you is a ticket. And so, so you go in, you make the request, and you get your ticket. And I am kind of amazed that I had a problem this morning. I created 2 tickets. One ticket is one happened because, and then I didn't get the email fast enough, so I just created another one. I had 2 personalized, like somebody typed it, requests within 5 minutes from both the tickets. And they were very cordial, but it wasn't like, no, you can't have this, or yes, you can't have this. It was like somebody read it and then typed back, because both of them were completely different approaches to say the same thing. But what I was amazed by was that they're not doing the standard call center, like cut and paste, move on. I was kind of taken aback by that. It's really incredible service. Next question.
And the next question coming in from Bob Sturdivant in San Antonio, Texas. And he asked, Alex, what entry-level equipment, software, and basic training should we invest in for the Lidar spin-up?
For when we're talking about Lidar, you can use your phone. So an Apple, an iPhone is going, of the last three generations, has a pro version of the last 3 generations, but definitely the last 2 generations will have Lidar. And that's enough to start to play with. I think that the Matterport little the little Matterport is probably enough to play with what it takes to capture something around you and start building things out. We will post things from my scanner. So I have a BLK 360 now, and so we'll post things. The scanning is not the hard part. So I will give you point cloud data to play with. The hard part is taking the scans and doing something with them. So we're not really worried about people knowing how to scan, because literally once the settings are set on my BLK, and this is the case for any scanner, once the settings are set, you literally set it down and hit a button, set it down and hit a button. And all you have to think about is occlusions. So you're looking for shadows, where shadows will occur. So whatever the scanner can't see, you need to cover with another scan. But that's it. That's like all you have to know about scanning. The scanning part is not hard. Now, it can get hard if you do a surveyed scan, and that means that you're using surveying tools, and only a handful of scanners do this. So like a good example is a Trimble SX10. You will have targets, and you'll have radios, and you'll have things, and that's a very technical scan. But what we're talking about in general is not going to be that. And so I wouldn't worry too much about owning the hardware. You can always, if you actually decide you want to do this, you can rent the hardware. You can also, Matterport now, someone brought it up earlier this week, now makes I think that they partnered with I think that the Matterport 3, I think they partnered with Lidar, with Leica, because it looks very much like they just took the BLK 360 and put it into a sleeker package. It's not as accurate. It's probably 1/4 of the accuracy of the BLK, which is about 1/4 of the accuracy of a Faro 350. And but it looks really nice. It looks like it's really easy to use, and it's only $6,000, which in the Lidar world, I mean, this was $80,000 like 10 years ago for everything, 60 to 80,000. Maybe you could get a cheap one that's used for 30 grand. So these are big numbers. And so it's a precision piece of equipment. So the BLK blew everybody's doors off at 18,000, and it's difficult and weird and does a bunch of things that it shouldn't do. But the prices are definitely coming down. And as they do, the demand for these little devices is growing, because I bought one. I was able to buy one used from a friend. And now I can, any place I'm going to do an event, I'm going to take that thing and I just hit a button. And it's so easy to use that I can actually send it to somebody and say, I need you to just scan this for me. Just go in and just push the button. I'll give you a diagram of the places to scan, and then just push the button. That's all you got to do. And then send it back to me, and I'll pull the data off. So it really changes the way you approach events, because a lot of times we have a bunch of photos. We don't really understand where everything actually is from the photos. You have a 3D model, and then you can start going, oh, I'm going to put lights here. Oh, the lights won't fit, or oh, they won't go through the door, or this won't go through here. What will the cameras actually look like with the lens on them? All of those things we can figure out when we have the 3D data. Harshid?
Just wanted to come back to the iPhone. It's the iPhone 12 Pro and Pro Max that the LiDAR sensor is available on. So anything after those 2 generations. 13, they didn't really market the LiDAR as being part of the device. So I'm not certain if it does have LiDAR, but the 12 certainly does have LiDAR built in, and it's the Pro and the Pro Max versions. And the side note I wanted to ask, with taking the imagery of it, is it a difficult task as just walking through buildings, and then we transfer the files over as a process in
Well,
the fashion
yeah.
you're trying to work on?
What happens is that on a phone, if you're using something like Polycam, you're just going to wave it around and it guides you into what you need to do. You see what things are working and not working. Polycam is not very good at doing big scans. If you start walking, it has a hard time managing the translation. So if you start walking, you'll go around something, and when you come back, you're like a foot off or 3 inches off or something like that. So you're better off with Polycam to capture multiple things and then realign them later. In my opinion, it's not something Polycam does. It's something that I do from it, because the Lidar on the phone only goes about 30 feet or 10 meters or so. And so that's what you want to use for a phone. The tricky part is most of these scanners generate what are called E57 files. These E57 files and you can bring those into something like MeshLab. MeshLab's free, and you can see what those files look like. But you're going to end up taking them into a program like Recap. Recap is going to allow you to do smart alignment. So it'll look at all the features there and realign all of those together. And then once you have those, you can output a recap file, and that recap file is going to have all of the scans. If you have 10 scans of a room, they're all lined up together to each other, and there might be a little bit of errata. From there, you can either try to generate geometry from that, or you use those point clouds to guide you building a model. You're snapping to those things to get your features. You're making sure that everything kind of lines up with it, and that's why a lot of people end up using it. And it's a whole nother second hour. Next question.
Thanks.
Tony Mobley, Noonan, Georgia, asked, I am embracing LinkedIn Live in future broadcasts with conversations with Tony Mobley and House of Worship. Will it work with Mimo Live?
I don't know. I actually don't know if Mimo Live has a direct link to it. I do think that LinkedIn Live now does it accept RTMP? Or is it still app only? And I don't know. I've been using, I think Restream will do it. So if you wanted to do it, you could go through Restream. Restream, I believe Wirecast, StreamYard. Go ahead, Noah.
I was just going to mention, for LinkedIn, at least up until a few months ago, they needed approval. Like, there was only certain pages that could stream. So Tony, you might look into see if your page is already approved. I believe I submitted like 2019 maybe from my channel, and I still haven't gotten any sort of email. So I might need to follow up with that to see if it's been more widely approved.
Then you have people like me.
I'm approved.
Oh, you're approved. Excellent, Tony.
I'm approved.
Well done. It's gotten a lot. I mean, they obviously, in 2019, they started very slowly. They when it first came out, it was a very small number of folks, I think mostly because they're still figuring it out, but now it's starting to, I would submit again is what I would probably do. I think the early one is probably a completely different system. Next question.
Next question in from Douglas Carmichael. I've noticed that in many cases, Spanish language public announcements, like those to the emergency alert system, use a male voice versus a French announcement that are in a female voice. How can that be?
Bill?
I don't think there's anything formal about it. It's a tradition, almost like using the feminine pronouns for ships. You always refer to a ship as she. It's just the way it's she. It's always been the way it's happened over the course of time. And I've never heard anything where it's codified. It's just tradition, I think.
Mitchell?
I think the French know something we don't.
Okay, there you go. Next question.
Next question from Andy Kokendorfer from Viera, Florida. When streaming directly from Zoom, it seems that you must be the host. Can a co-host start a live stream?
I don't think they can. I think you have to be host to start that. Go ahead, Josh.
Negative. No, you can't.
Okay. Yeah, you got to be the host to do that. And it's going to go to the account that you define on that. Now, what you can do is you can set that up. And I've had trouble with it, but I hear that people do it all the time. But you can, instead of attaching it directly to Facebook or YouTube, you can send it out as an RTMP. And I've had difficulties getting that RTMP to work going into YouTube, where it just didn't go anywhere. But it should be possible to do that. And I haven't tested it for probably over a year. Next question.
And it's for me. The question is, John Preto, now that you're in Studio C, does your bird know where to find you?
We caught John Preto not at his desk.
He's with the bird.
There he goes. He was with the bird. The bird was eating his audio cables. We know that's how that usually turns out. John, are you there? It's Studio C. Nope. He's up. Are you there, John? Studio C? Yeah, see, you just got to set what's on. He's like,
Hey, John.
hello.
We want to know that now that you're in Studio C, does your bird know where to find you?
Sorry, I was letting him out of his cage. He comes out at 8 o'clock and he screams until he gets out. I just got him out. He's right behind me.
That's great. So the bird does know where to find you, no matter where you are.
Same room. Just
Told you he was with the bird.
Different angle. Okay, very good. Next question.
Ronny Hofse from Tromsø, Norway, speaking about pan-tilt zooms, has anyone tried the new P110 and P120 from BirdDog and can share their thoughts? Will it be a nice camera to start playing with the 3D tracking into Unreal Engine on a green screen?
Go ahead, Noah.
I was at a conference in San Diego a few weeks ago. They had some demo units they were playing with and showing off, and so we'll see if I can swing something. They might be sending out some demo units. Nothing's confirmed yet, but I would love to review those and take a look as well.
And what are the outputs available there? Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, I haven't got to play with that one specifically yet, but here's what it looks like with the one that's behind me. If you click into the cam control, then here's 3D, and then you just enable it. You put in the IP address in the port, hit apply. I'm told that this is still pretty beta, and so if you really want to do this stuff, I'd be looking at Panasonic. As much as I like BirdDog, this isn't fully baked in yet, and people are having success with the Panasonic model, so I'd be looking more over there.
Yeah, and the other thing to know is that green screen, I mean, a lot of people do green screen in a lot of different ways. They do it with their webcams, and they do it with it, but just be purist here for a second. With green screen, you want as much data as you can get. When it compresses, when something gets compressed down to H.264 or NDI or other things like that, you're throwing away all the data that you needed to pull that green screen. So all that data that gives you all the hair detail and everything else is gone. And you're going to get a much chunkier result as a result. Is it acceptable for the average virtual background? Probably. But the problem really is that for it to really to sell it, you really need all the little hairs and the little glints and all those other bits and pieces that you lose when you start to overcompress the signal. So keying NDI footage is a bad idea. Like, now these cameras, the NDI is too compressed. Like, I don't like to key things that are less than 1.5 gigs. like it is all the color, because as soon as it's compressed, you're going down, you're throwing away tons and tons of color information, and you're not going to get the same I guess it's an okay idea. It is an average idea to key off of NDI. NDI is beating up the signal. That's how it fits all of that signal into a smaller space. It has to throw something away. It's not made of nothing. So it's not like it just took out a bunch of air and went down to the only thing that was there. It went down to something that was acceptable for most video, especially after it's been compressed and streamed. And so it's an acceptable thing for color, like when you're just doing something out there. But if you're actually doing high end, if you want the most out of your green screen, and a lot of people, as I said, I will admit that I'm a purist about green screen because I've done a lot of it, and hundreds and thousands of hours of it. And, we use 444 cameras, and but we get every little hair and we get it quickly, and because we have to process 10 hours at a time of it, and so to get to that point where you're getting, again, hair detail is the thing that most people give up when they start going to more compressed formats. And so anything less than uncompressed is going to damage the quality of the edges of your green screen. And so, again, you can probably get away with it for a lot of corporate and streams and everything else, but just know that don't think it's the same, and it looks a little like a cleaner cutout when you put it into a virtual set. And I see it all the time. Like looking at people's virtual sets, it's like, they don't look like they're there. They look like they're in front of a virtual set. And that's usually because their black levels are off, their white levels are off, their color is off, the lighting is off, and mostly they're using some kind of compressed format to do the actual key. Go ahead, Noah.
If you take a look at the sensor size of a lot of the PTZs that are out there, including the P110 and the 120, so it's about a 1/2/8 of an inch. Which is an arbitrary number at this point because the standards change, but essentially it's very small, right? And as you go up to a 1-inch sensor, it's about 4 times that size. And then if we go up to the Super 35, it's 4 times that size again. So the larger the sensor, like we talked about earlier in the program, better depth of field, you just get a better picture overall. Also with these lenses, they're not a through stop. So meaning it's a 2.8 to like a 3.5, I believe, f-stop range. So as you zoom in, you lose some light or stoppage, right? I think Alex asked about what kind of outputs, SDI, HDMI, NDI, and I think there's USB. And it claims to be 10-bit 422. We'll see.
Okay. So the I mean you can't take something out of nothing. So 10-bit I mean, if they claim it, someone should send me a camera and I'll run it through a delta test and we'll see if it's really 10-bit. Because the real where the proof in the pudding is that you will take that signal and we'll record it and then we'll put it over top of the original signal. And then we're going to do a difference key, and we're going to do a difference, and we're going to see if it's identical, then it's identical, but it won't be. Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, it is a form of just the same codec, or the way that ProRes does 422 is DCT, discrete cosine transform, and that is what NDI is using at the full NDI. So what you may have been talking about is NDI HX, which is 420. So when you're at 120 megabit for 1080p and 1080p 60, it's a pretty darn close to SDI 3G. I believe that JVC had in their booth 1 year showing the demonstration on scopes of 3G SDI versus NDI out of their camera, because you could do live both out of a lot of these cameras. You can do SDI, NDI, as well as USB and HDMI. So some of these you might want to work. You might want to work in that environment if you're doing real time and you have like an Ultimate or something like that doesn't support NDI. But I think for Unreal Image, it's just a nice, convenient way to get the signal in, and it looks pretty darn good. And we're talking ProRes. Regular, not 444
or HQ
4x4 or HQ. It's just ProRes standard. But again, it's that convenience versus live versus post.
Which I would never key. Like I would never key a ProRes 422. Like I would like we start at HQ and go up from there. It's not like it's, and then what we try to do is if we're in 422, we try to oversample. So we want to capture it at 4K, capture it at 8K, because that's going to return us back to essentially a 444 signal at the resolution that we're working at to get to the footage that we actually want to use. But I think it's a real challenge, and it's a kind of a frustrate. I just feel like I'm only holding the line there is because there's just so much bad keying out there, just so much. And it just hurts my eyes. Next question.
Tony Mobley from Newton, Georgia. I need to create a house of worship experience like Greg's Santa workshop. Any suggestions from Greg and the panel?
Greg?
Well, it's also very challenging and difficult. I agree with Alex about green screen in general. I'm speaking to you from a green screen environment. You got to make sure you use the right cameras. Use the ATEM for the keying, because I think it comes with the best keyer for the price. And then also make sure your lighting is done properly. But it is challenging. It all depends what you're trying to achieve, Tony. Are you looking for something that green screen will provide where a stage background like yourself does not? Then you would work towards that goal. In my situation, I'm trying to provide a very magical experience for the visitors, so I need green screen to achieve that. But it is challenging.
Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, I've shared this with the community several times. I have a 93-year-old pastor who is desperate to get into the house of worship, and I'm trying to figure out a way. She is celebrating 40 years as a pastor, and so I'm trying to figure out a way to create a virtual environment for her to be in the sanctuary and to have as I say, she's celebrating 40 years as pastor. And so I'm trying to figure out a way to do it. And there's no budget. This is me just trying to figure out a way to do it. I just want to be able to celebrate her and make her happy. And so that's why I'm asking all of these questions about it and trying to see if it can be done in Unreal, and just that's what it's all about.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so I think that, I mean, again, with a simple, for a lot of those kinds of things with a simple background, you might be able to, put something together. The main thing beyond the, pulling a virtual background is figuring out your focal lengths and your camera position. So what you want to do is you got to figure out what the focal length is of the camera that you're going to use. If it's a webcam, it's a lot harder because it's a little bit more complicated to figure that math out. But if you can figure that out of what that camera is, you figure out what the exact angle. So it should be exactly the same height to your virtual background as your main one. So you have to have it exactly at the at the same height, same angle as it relates to the person that it's going to be in the virtual world, so that your vanishing points work. It's one of the first things that tells people subconsciously that they're not looking at a real thing. And so you get that, and again, a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about is not what people notice, it's how they feel. So, you really want to keep thinking about that whether they feel like it's there or not, because most people don't know why. I think Bill had a great talk, was talking about this yesterday, you talk to a designer and they sit there and start doing a bunch of kerning, and there's nothing that they're doing that makes any sense to it's just to a non-designer, but when they're done, it looks more good. like there's something about it that looks like it has gravitas. It looks like there's the thing to remember is when you're looking at an ad in almost every magazine done by a large corporation, you couldn't just take that ad, copy it, put it on a thing and type the same words in the same font and set it right next to it. And what you're going to see is every single letter in not in the text in like a little paragraph, but every single letter in a display graphic has been tweaked. They sit there and they play with all the little bits and pieces to get it just right. And we don't see that, but it's why it looks better. And so these are the kind of things that you can do. These are little things that you can do, is figure out where the camera was, figure out what the focal length is and put it into the camera. And then, try to get a reasonably good green screen out of it to have her. But what's going to sell a lot of it is that position, and also think about where the lighting is coming from. But to do something like what Greg's doing, figuring out where the lighting should be, if they're lit a certain way, what is the background? How would that be there? Where is the camera? What is the focal length of that camera? And then you can get away with a little bit more with the green screen. All right. We are changing subjects and jumping in and talking about behind the scenes. Now, I have a little bit of a 911. My Friday mornings are a little complicated now because of the other stuff that we're doing. And I need to fix something before the show. We're doing another thing with Michael Krasny. And so I need to fix something this morning. So I'm going to hand this off to Bill and let him run with it, but let everyone discuss their backgrounds. I think we can do a little bit of show and tell. So Bill, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Thanks, Alex. Appreciate it. Welcome, everybody, to one of the most fun things we do. We are going to pull down the curtains and let the Wizard of Oz become who he or she really is. And so this is our behind-the-scenes looks at our actual setups. If you have questions about these as they come by, please make notes and so forth. And I guess I wasn't really planning to go first, but I guess since we are tossing it to me, I'm going to attempt to do mine here. I've got a couple of wide views. So what I'm going to do is switch to the cameras around my studio here. And so what you've been seeing every day is this picture. It is created by a variety of different cameras. And one of the things you have to do is put a little more light on the scene. If I don't do that, that's going to make my head look awfully orange, but hopefully that will give enough light so that when I switch to my wide shot, you can see a little bit about what my desk setup looks like. And let me do a couple of little things here. I'm going to pull that down. I know you can hardly see my screen, but we're going to make sure that we don't reveal any secrets behind the scenes. So my rig is reasonably simple for a complex rig. I use 4 primary screens. Panel view over on my right. My laptop is the controller that usually has stuff running on it. On the left, I keep Discord active. Comms are up on the side of that left monitor over there. You can't really see that in the picture, but that's okay. I have a large overhead monitor, and the reason that I really like having the large monitor is that if anybody's showing text stuff, the little teleprompter monitor, which is right in front of me, which is my eye contact monitor, is very hard for me to read small text. So whenever you see me look up during the show, what I'm probably doing is reading text off of that top monitor. On the right, there's also a couple of devices. There's my iPad, which I'm using to do some forms of research. I occasionally have that on when I'm actually doing work, things like Slack or other communication systems. There's an iPhone, which right now usually is on my left side, and I keep that for specific communication with my wife and a few other people, just in case there's an emergency in my life. And there's another laptop over here. I didn't have this laptop up, and it's not turned on today, but when I'm doing something like the Final Cut training, I usually run my training examples here so I can switch back and forth between the examples that I'm providing for people and the rest. Let's go to another view. Now, people have always asked me about lighting and things like that, so if I can move to this, that is actually my iPhone that's sitting next to me. And so that's the lighting grid that's up above me. You can see the top part of that. So lighting is kind of a big deal. There's a ceiling fan up there. It keeps me a little bit cooler. And if I pan this around, you'll see that there's actually more auto poles above me that is maintaining some of the wiring. You'll also see there are heavy curtains in a lot of this area. And those curtains hung on auto poles are there for sound damping. That's what makes me able to use a good quality mic in here and not get a lot of echo out of the system. So that's a kind of a 2-cent look around my system. Anybody else have any questions on what they saw, or should we go on to the next person who's going to be?
Yeah, go ahead. You a quick question. Yeah, as far as your poles that you're hanging stuff from, do you have any sort of brand, or are they like wall splitters, I guess is the term, or what?
No, these are Manfrotto auto poles, and I got really lucky. I've had a couple, 2 or 3. They're usually $100 or so, somewhere around there. But I got lucky. I was looking on, I think, was it eBay or Craigslist or something, and somebody had a bunch for sale. And when I went, I drove over to them. They were in Los Angeles, so I had to drive up to LA. But it turned out they had done a big fashion show, and the art director of the fashion show had wanted to create a grid. They had beaucoup money, so they bought a whole bunch of these and painted them white. So when you see all those white poles, they're actually traditional Manfrotto auto poles that they disassembled, sanded, painted white. And I thought, well, gosh, that kind of works for my area here. The overhead shot that I just showed you, and let me switch back to that for just a second. One of the interesting things is there are parallel poles up there. Actually, in my old studio, like the parallel poles over my head, I had a really bad sounding ceiling. The ceiling in my old place used to be flat plaster, and it had a big slap back. So I actually had huge foam baffles hanging over those auto poles to keep that top slap under control. Here, I have a traditional popcorn acoustic ceiling. And when I came in here, I put them up and I took them down and I listened, and there was no difference. So +1 for the better acoustic treatment in most modern homes. Anything else anybody wants to ask about? Oops, my IFB is going crazy over here. That's something I just did 2 days ago. I switched my IFB from plug-in on the right side of my desk to my left side, and I'm still not used to it. You really do kind of get used to your desk setup, boy, and if it changes, it drives you nuts. Okay, who wants to go next? I've kind of showed you mine. Mitch, you had your hand up. I saw it first, so Mitch, take it away.
I like this segment because it gets a chance to put the Wizard of Oz on the spot. My case is pretty simple. I built this room just before joining office hours, and the setup basically is right here. It's all driven by one Mac M1, which is living under the desk right here, so you can't really see it. But I have 2 screens. One screen is the M1, and the second one is actually this screen right here, which is that's a confidence monitor, which also has the scopes on it. And above it is a iCan mini teleprompter. And that is set to the output of the second monitor on my M1. And also I can switch it via the Extremer, which is over here. So basically I'm always looking here to make eye contact. And this monitor is for confidence, so I can check levels. I have it on scope view. This is a Andy Cine 4K, which works real well. And then on this side, the ubiquitous Extremer multi-view, which gives me all the different shots that I need to see. Everything is held up with a pole in the back that's attached to the top of my desk. And on the top of the pole behind this teleprompter is a Sony FX3 camera, which is attached to this teleprompter, very much like a matte box is. So it's an easy way to attach it. It's small, and if you were to look at my actual view that I'm seeing, you can begin to see that I can see just about everything in a simple and easy way. I can see Josh over there on the screen. And the microphone is attached with a boom pole, which is attached to the main pole, which holds the camera. And then my AKG 414 sits here just out of frame. That's my style. And it doesn't really need to move. It's just sort of sitting here all by itself and real happy. As far as lighting goes, sorry about my great camera work, I've got a very nice light panel for my key light, and it's adjustable. It's a 2-stage Astra Soft, so it gives me the complexion I need. I got a nan light on this side for fill. Behind me, and very much like Bill's setup, I have a Varipole on the ceiling. Notice that I have a panel attached to the wall before the Varipole pushes into it. And I'm doing that because I don't want to punch a hole through my drywall. So there's a support there to spread the load a little bit. And then if you follow the Varipole across, there's a scissor adapter right there to attach it to the ceiling for a little more rigidity. And it goes all the way to the other side. That's my washer and dryer, by the way. And in the lighting side, I've got a LEDGO, which is the same folks that make Nanlite, LED bar, basically, that throws a little wash on the back. And then I've got my hair light there with a egg crate on it. That's a Nanlite, which I can also control. So it's a nice little setup. And then in my background, it's just various stuff. I have my my music server that serves music. Music's important to me. And a Duro meter right there, which gives me a little flash behind my head. As I go over the on-air light with a ND filter on it, there's a big rack here because this is my operating system for doing voiceover work. There's the U87, there's my main mixer, and the speakers are Genelex. And if I keep rolling over, there's some ancient cinema displays connected to an ancient Mac, which is over here on the floor, which will be replaced as soon as Apple announces their new Mac Pro, which I hope happens soon. So that's my basic setup. It works for me. It goes through a few adjustments, and I think the only thing that I'll be adding to it might be some different mic processing. I might put a teleprompter on the back of that on that Sackler sticks that I have behind me. Any questions? None?
Doesn't look like we have any. I see no hands raised, but nicely done, Mitch. Thank you for the tour through all of that. Who was it that wanted to go next? Anybody? Tony Mobley. So, Tony, take it away. Oops, we're not hearing you, Tony. Still have a mute going on here. That's the downside of all these switches and buttons and things like that.
I think Noah had his hand up for Mitch if we need a minute.
I did have a question for Mitch real quick while Tony's getting his mute sorted. Mitch, I was curious about your Stream Deck, what you have programmed on that.
I'm sorry, I didn't show more of that. It is set up for MixPre. Adam Tao made a great preset setting, so I can control my entire system from here, switcher, audio, macro, media, all of the stuff.
Your mic and stand are hitting focus.
I know.
Oh, there you go.
See, I'm real good at camera work. You can see I do a lot of that. There's my Stream Deck. MixPre's running on, not MixPre, MixEffect is running on there. I have remote control of everything, so it's handy. I just leave it on the MixEffects. That works for me.
Okay, Tony, how you doing? Have you managed to get Mike through yet? No, it's still having a problem. Okay, so who was it that was it Josh you said wanted to go next, or who was it that was kind of in line? We've got Hasmukh, we've got Greg.
I see Harshid next in the questions.
Now I'm unmuted.
Oh, okay, there you go, Tony. Congratulations. That's right. It happens sometimes. Yeah, take us through your setup.
So what I wanted to do was to go to my 1C. And I wanted to show you guys my, let's see, I wanted you to see what I did Monday night and after hours. So let's see, that should be the 1C. Okay, so this is actually the hr2gear.com, hr2.com gear. And let me pull back just, well, you guys really can't see this. I probably need to do a screen share in order for you to be able to identify.
No, we can see it okay. Just try not to move too much and we'll be able to read it.
Okay, so this item right here is the MacBook Pro 2012 that is now deceased, but I still have it here in the home. It's a book weight, a doorstop. So this is all that I had when I first started participating in office hours. And I've gone from that to all of these things. So I'm gonna pull back just a little bit more. So I've come a long way from the initial office hours experience.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And so I'm gonna just show you now what the setup looks like. So you're looking at the ICANN 12-inch teleprompter. Behind that is the 10S Max that I use as my camera. I'm a primary camera, which is connected HDMI to the ATEM Mini Pro. It has the Filmic Pro application working on it. And let's see, so this is the Mac Mini here. That's Apple TV. That is my actual working phone. This was my old phone and it was it wouldn't ring. So that's the replacement phone for it. ATEM Mini, Stream Deck, H6 keyboard. This is my M1 iPad Pro. This is an 11-inch iPad Pro, which has it's actually in our office hour Zoom meeting. PR40, 2012 MacBook Pro. And that is actually, this monitor is the ATEM Multiview Out, but it is broadcasting the YouTube of office hours through the Apple TV and in my port 4. And so I think that's everything.
Nice look around, Tony. You've managed to set up everything really nicely in a compact area.
So the small lights, there are 5 lights. The 2 small lights are the newer lights. And the 3 panel lights are the GVMs that my sons gave me for Christmas. So that is it, I think. Behind this monitor is a Raspberry Pi that is not connected at this time. And so that's my setup.
Nice. Very nice. I do want to make 2 notes. First and foremost, for those of you who might be watching thinking I need to go on office hours because I have a lot of things to say. These are, a lot of us have been here for a long time. We've been building up these systems forever. Don't think that you have to have this elaborate a setup to join us. If you have something to say, make things as simple or as complicated as you like. A lot of us are aficionados. And so we're using office hours really literally as an excuse to have fun with our internet setups and things like that. It's not required to spend at this level today. The other thing I wanted to know, just for the panelists coming up, and we actually do have people in line now, so Harshid's going to go next, then Noah. But we want to make sure that everybody understands that we've asked people to take any Mukana interface, particularly the panel view, and just drag it down below the screen if you're going to show something, so we make sure that we don't release.
For Tony, Bill?
Question for Tony? Yeah, go ahead.
Tony, how crazy does your wife think you are with all that gear in the living room of your house?
That's number 1 question.
She she has moments when she's not very happy with me and all of this equipment, but for the most part, she allows me to do this primarily, I think, because I am helping a house of worship with all of their streaming needs and support. So I think that's a feather in my cap. And also, I did not share this, but right here, the conversation with Tony Mobley logo. I don't know if you guys can see it or not.
Yeah, really well.
It was created for me by Jeffrey Powers while he was on conversation with Tony Mobley with me, and so I wanted to make sure that it can be seen anytime that I'm on the air.
Nice.
So I want to thank Jeffrey and the community, because without the community, then we wouldn't have had a conversation with Jeffrey, and so just want to say thank you to everybody.
Okay, we're moving, I believe, to Harshit.
Happy wife, happy life. Well, we need to go look for the wife, but we're looking at media here and AV stuff. So let's talk about something so simple, because that's kind of what I have here. You're looking at me through a Brio webcam, but I have another camera that's in this meeting, and you'll be seeing a mixer. This is a Yamaha MG10XU mixer that I have sitting next to me, and now we will bring live. If you see in front of you...
Oh, we're getting a note here that the camera's switched off. It must have. Maybe it went out of power mode or something.
But anyway, so... Let's...
Actually, do you want to take a moment and we can go to someone and come right back to you next? Or is it going to come right down? Okay, good. Let's switch over to Noah Sargent. Noah, do you want to take us through your rig?
Sure. Yeah. Hi, everybody. So I can kind of talk you through my setup. I'm probably going to switch my camera so you can see the behind the scenes here. So it might flicker for a second while I switch. So forgive me. All right. So now we should be on my behind the scenes camera.
There you are.
Everybody. I try to keep a really simple setup as far as this build out goes. So I do have a 24-inch prompter from Prompter People. It's a nice big display. It's really great to have that real estate in front of me here. Behind it is a Blackmagic 6K. And then you'll see just below the monitor, I have the MixPre 3 and a Heil PR40, which I need to troubleshoot because for some reason the signal's not the best right now. I used to run my Sony FS5 through a monitor here, so I can kind of get a quick preview, but with the Blackmagic, I went ahead and skipped that step because I wanted to have camera control in my ATEM Mini. You'll also see this little fun C-stand, this little mini C-stand. It's really just for display. My family got that for me.
That's so cute.
Yeah,
it is kind of those.
Cute. Yeah. So, I think it's workable. Like you can actually put something on it, like use a flag, and it's got an arm and stuff. So it's kind of cool. But so my kind of main rig here, as far as display, is a 42-inch Samsung. And the cool thing about that, I can actually swing this camera over. So on this monitor, you'll see there's kind of a quad split thing happening here. The cool thing about this is it's kind of like 4 21-inch displays next to each other. And so it really just keeps the setup simple, right? And so throughout the day, I can have multiple windows going open at once. You kind of have to change the way you think and approach how your setup goes with this kind of larger monitor, because I was used to having full screen windows and having multiple windows or multiple monitors like a lot of the other panelists had. But when I switched over to this single panel, I honestly think it was a game changer for me. And then I also tend to lower or raise the brightness of the television depending on my mood and what I'm doing. I also have some blue blocker glasses, so when I'm working at night, anytime past sunset, I tend to put these on, even though I don't wear glasses yet, even though that's coming, I'm sure. And then let me swing over, I guess above me, I can show you that too. I do have a little hair light. This is a panel by Amaron, I believe. I do have a nice big soft light here with a Light Dome Mini 2, and that is the 60D, I believe, from Aperture. And as I spin around, you'll see right behind my shoulder is a server. It's about 120 terabytes or so. And then behind me the slate that was custom built by me for my wedding. So it's, obviously represents a real slate, and it does clap for those who are curious. I do have a drum set and my LED lights, and sorry for the mess back here, but there are a few miscellaneous things that are going around. You'll see there is a curtain, there's a window here, and an AC unit going as well. So that's why there's that curtain kind of covering everything else in the background. And the cool thing about that too is it kind of creates a dark space behind me so that I pop a little bit when it comes back to the light. So I'll go ahead and switch back to my main camera here, and you should see me pop up as well. So
Noah, what's providing the fill light on the short side of your face? Because that's a pretty big softbox.
Yeah, good question. So the main light here is my key, and then as Bill just asked, my fill light, it's gosh, I'll have to find the link and I'll post it. But basically, it's just a little 1x panel, and I did end up putting some ND on it, and it's turned down pretty low. But it's just basically a 1x panel with a desk. I'm sorry, a desk mount. Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. All right. Let's see. Harshid, are you ready for us?
I hope I am. If you're seeing another video, try something out new, and who knows? And this is where we get, you get gas, as they call it, gear acquisition syndrome. So things happen.
We're all aware of that.
But just to mention, and if anybody wants to know, I don't have the greatest vision, so Bill is helping me narrate the situation. But just a couple monitors. I would suggest that anybody get nice OLED monitors if you're in a dark room, so it pops at you. If you need just to look at something, if you're doing color accuration stuff, then of course get the right equipment for the need. But yeah, this is just, basic old table, and we'll fit a chair here soon, and we'll maybe change the shot up. But if anyone has questions, concerns, let me know.
Any questions? Nice tour. Well done.
Thank
you. Josh.
Yeah, and Harshid, I really appreciate you sharing your setup with us. And it's good touchstone for us too. Like Harshid said, we can, add things to make different comfort and different process, different production ideas that we use. But really the minimal thing, and just being able to use things that are on the house is really, it's all necessary to make us or our participants look good or functional for a talking head type production. So depending on where production is, that's where a lot of our extra gear comes from. But really, it doesn't take a really complex system just to come on to office hours. So don't be intimidated by some of the stuff we show.
Well said. I mean, a lot of us have been accumulating gear for 30 years, and at this, hey, I'm going to do it at home. Let me go to the storeroom, and what could I use? We had access to a lot of stuff that was back in the back. Let's see. Hasmukh, I think, is up next. So Hasmukh, take us through your system.
Yeah, thank you. So I have a very small room, so I'm going to switch to my iPhone, and hopefully you can see that. Let me just do that. Oh dear. Here we go.
There it
so
is.
That's my 8M Extreme, which I'm beginning to dive deep into. Then I have my Stream Deck. I've programmed my Stream Deck. Say again. Are you seeing this?
Yes, we're seeing this. It looks great, and I'm really mad at you because you have the cleanest looking desk of anyone, and you're making me feel like I'm way out of control.
I'll come to that. So on the Stream Deck, I've programmed the buttons for the two outputs from the Stream Deck. So I can take any of the inputs and panel view. Mickey's saying panel view. Am I missing something?
The panel view on the top monitor, you need to tilt your camera down for just a second. And if you can then tilt your camera, the one that's live, down for just a second, then on that monitor that was in front, if you can move the panel view down.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Just grab the top bar and drag it down.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. There we go.
There you go. And now we're in good shape.
Yeah. I had set that up, and then I in.
I forgot afterwards and didn't bring it back up, and I couldn't see anything.
My apologies to everybody.
It's all right. You're fine. You're fine.
Yeah. So this is the monitor in front of me. Obviously, I'm very nervous. And so this is the Samsung monitor. Then I have another monitor here where I throw the multi-view. And then I have the 24-inch teleprompter like I think Noah has. And then these are the Nanlite 68Bs. So I got one there and one there. And then I have a Chinese ball there up just over my head. And these are called Telefino. They're Chinese made, but they're pretty good. So I got one there and one on my right-hand side. And as I said, on the Stream Deck, I've got the two outputs from the ATEM. So I can switch any of the inputs to any of the monitors. So sometimes I can switch that monitor, for example, from multi-view to the meeting itself or this camera itself. So that's going to look crazy, but there we go. And then I'm going to go a little underneath, if I may. I'm going to show you below my desk. So that's my Mac Mini.
You notice that nobody else who's done this has gone below their desk, and there's a good reason for that. All of us, other than Hasmik, are ashamed of what's sitting behind our feet. Go ahead, Hasmik.
And that's the OWC Thunderbolt hub. And there you see my Apple TV. This is my winter appliance. So that's my oil heater to keep me warm. And I'm just going to ask Gary to show the IKEA desk that we imported from South Africa. And just go around to show that side. So this is a custom built desk. So it's got, it has casters on it. So I can wheel the entire desk out as it is without removing anything. You'll see two flaps there. And all my CalDigit hub is sitting in there. All the power plugs are sitting there. And and also the, not the router, but the network hub, so that I can wheel the entire setup into the other office. So when I do the medical event, I drag this entire setup out of here. And then, if I can have that, Gary. I haven't shown you my huddle, but I normally have a huddle cam, and then I keep this Brio here as well. And you can see I use the Nobiscope. Well, I used to use the Nobiscope, but now I'll try and look at my setup as well. So that's it. And that's the Apple TV remote to get the Apple TV going.
Really nice. Okay, you win so far for wire management and neatness for all of us. Well done, Hasmik. I guess we wouldn't have expected anything else of a doctor who is very precise about making sure everything is where it needs to be. So beautifully done. We're moving on to Josh Kaufman next. Josh, you're up.
All right. So I have a setup. Let me switch over to my behind the scenes. So here I have my
Mac.
So I have the two 4Ks for my work area, and then I have two touch screens down here. This one has the pen and touch as well, and some of my background. And let me just swap that real quick so I can go into a little detail. This is the auxiliary computer with the quad view. So the nice thing about the Zoom room that runs off of this is that I can still use the computer, even though it's pretty overkill. And I believe I can show you on the ATEM, it also has an auxiliary output. So I can bring that into my Extreme. As far as the teleprompter, it's custom built, basically with glass, is paper and tape. But just with the teleprompter in the correct position is an 85 mil, say A7 III, and my monitor there. And I have the quad view for all of my multi-view for the ATEM, for my auxiliary monitor for my second production computer, and the keynote from the Mac. So the second screen on there. That I can switch to as well, and it goes into the ATEM as well. So I can switch for my ATEM and still have the multi-view. So basically the same kind of setup that Noah was talking about, where you're able to consolidate a lot of the smaller monitors, and for a larger one, have the Behringer Flow with the Stream Deck, room for some of the production equipment there, as well as my mic arm. And I have the quad views. I have right now, they're hiding under here. You can adjust what you want to show. You can blow up one particular picture. You can change what you see in that quad view. Those need to be moved underneath and put in a custom rack, but currently that's not happening right now. So that's that. And then sort of a top-down view. I've got there's the Mac with a little custom mount I have for just a little helpful thing to Velcro the ports, because on the Mac, the ports come separately. And it kind of holds the power and HDMI down, and I can have the card reader and USBs on and just connect into the Mac Pro for that.
Wow, is it a ceiling fan, or is it flicker from just the scan rates of the overhead camera? It was really interesting looking.
Yeah, it's a ZV-1 camera that I'm using, and it just does not like. I can do 24 frames and 60 as far as I can tell.
That's it. But you can't change frame rate beyond that, so it's beating against the frequency.
The interesting thing is that all of the monitors are 60 hertz, but this particular monitor with the touch screen is an older one, and the ATEM buttons are the only ones that really give me trouble with. For
very disco reason, though, so I like it.
Yeah. So
and Josh, you're the only person I've seen who have substantial touch screens. Why did you decide to go in the touch screen for those audio interfaces directly in front of you?
Sure. Well, my philosophy is that the things that I can reach or touch, and the things that I have my real estate is work in the 4K screen. So this I can move any interfaces around, I can touch and reach these, and then the things I just need a lot of real estate, I can switch back to the other.
Interesting. Well, everybody does it differently, and that's what the fun of this day is. I love to see different people approach different things in different ways. So, anybody have any questions for Josh's setup?
Sure. Yeah, I was curious about what you multi-purpose that space for, and obviously you're, from what I know, a webcast engineer too. So I don't know what. Obviously, you have a bigger build out for a reason. So the tool fits a purpose, and I'm curious of that purpose.
Yeah. So the two production computers that I'm using, the one is primarily a vMix machine, and then the Zoom room is overbuilt to have a 10 gig LAN between the two. The boxes, actually, I don't have a picture for them. They are next door. So I moved all the noisy and hot equipment outdoor, and all the input and output goes out there. My UPSs are here, so I can keep status on them and scale down as well. But mostly it's your streaming computer, and then you have your production Zoom room, as well as of course, the ATEM has the input for the Mac, and putting in graphics with Keynote and such, and a couple other ones that can come in either over NDI or over the Stream Deck for that type of setup.
Nicely done. We've got two more tours, and we've got a question at the end, so I want to leave a little bit of time for that. So we're moving to John Preto, and John, can you keep it to about 3 or 4 minutes?
Negative. I can't.
I was going to say, for leaving you without much time is a hard call, but give us the best shot you got.
This is Studio C. My other desk over there is the one that I normally log in from over there, which is an iMac Pro. This guy is an M1. I do the same thing Bill does. This desk is against this wall, and I have two auto poles, Manfrotto auto poles going to the ceiling. And then I have a piece of truss. You can see it up here. It's a theatrical truss. And from that, I hang my two DMX lights. And then my Sony A7 III is on a Manfrotto super arm super clamp. And then I've got two monitors, a 31, and then I've got a 27 5K LG, and then Extreme, A10 Mini Extreme. You can't see, it's right behind me. And then I've got a Mix Pre 10, and I've got a rack next to me And that thing's full of gear. It's got HyperDecks in it. It's got a big mixer in it and a bunch of other stuff in there. So, and then I've got a Raspberry Pi that my bird ate all the keys off of right here on my left. That's this monitor. And then I've got everything tied into the A10. So I've got multiple screens here I can pop in and out of when we're doing shows. This is a NDI PTZ camera. It's not the greatest, but it works. And that's a real quick look at my setup. And I have something that you guys don't have. I've got 3 giant rockets behind me right there in my background.
You do, and you're the only one with a bird-modified system, so congratulations on achieving that. Hopefully whatever the bird pecked at and got off of there, they didn't digest and didn't cause them any problems. We're going to move on. Let's see. John Preto, then Greg Switch. I'm not pronouncing your name wrong correctly because I don't think I've heard it before. Swick. Thank you. Greg, take it away.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yeah, I'm a virtual Santa Claus, so my setup is based on what I do. So it's not normally set up for being on the panel here. So basically, I'll give you a example of some of these setups. This is my stage left. I go here to tell stories to the children. So I have a camera. I use nothing but Sony cameras for my setup here. So that's what I use. And then back here is a front view. And then I use a Stream Deck to switch all my scenes. And then this is my office for Santa. And I use a COS 11D, a lavalier mic, so I can walk around and talk to the children and won't have any sound issues there. So I'm using that paired with a Sony for my lavalier setup. And that gives me the ability to move around my scenes. The Stream Deck is a very important part of my setup. I'm in a 12 by 13 room. This is some of the background here is just my green screen curtain in the back, and it's pulled across the same kind of setup that you see in hospitals around the actual bedding for privacy. I use that same channel on the ceiling, and I use that to pull my curtain. 12 by 13, total of 7 Draycast lighting, and 1 newer lighting for the key front light. 2 one off to the left and right. In the back, there's most of them lighting up the green screen, so I won't have any green screen issues. And the Stream Deck is an extremely important piece of my setup, so I can easily move from scene to scene, like an example of moving to the halls of letters and be able to switch that, or to the reindeers, and sound effects that go along with it as I move as I take them through the tour of the North Pole. So that is the idea of why I have that basic setup for that reasoning. And then again, I'm back here to the office. So again, I use an ATEM. I use a Mac Mini, was my first purchase of last year, around January. And then this year, around February, I bought the Studio as the main computer. The Mac Mini M1 became a backup. I use 2 monitors, left and right. I have a teleprompter in front of me. I use a printer off to the left so I can print out nice certificates for the children. And that's basically my setup. I don't know if I left any out. Oh, I use 2 Sony cameras. A third one is set up for an overview view. I don't have that on right now, but I should have had that on for today, and that's what that would have been. But anyway,
expect to get a lot of request letters that feature the words Neumanns and Aries and grip. Because now you've been on office hours with the behind-the-scenes look, and the season is on its way toward us. It's not that far before our requests will go out. Well done, Greg. Thank you. Let's see. Do we have any? No, we got a couple questions here, so let's deal with the questions real quick. Mitch, do you want to read them?
Yes. This one's from Santa Bart. Greg runs 2 Stream Decks, by the way.
Oh, okay, just a note there. So excellent. 2 Stream Decks in the system you just saw. Next question.
Next question from Rob Collins in Kansas City, Missouri. When building a setup like all of yours, what's the best next thing to look at getting after having a good mic and camera?
And Noah Sargent's going to start us off on this one.
Sure. So I'll actually talk about the order I typically talk to my clients about is first internet, right? Hardline internet connection, plug your computer into your router. If you can upgrade to fiber, that will change everything. Secondly is audio, right? Having a good audio chain from your microphone being as close to your source as possible to the interface that it works with your computer, right? And turns the audio from what we hear into what the computer can understand. Third would be lighting, right? So having a key fill and backlight, hair light, background light, all those fun things. And then last would be the camera, in my opinion, in that order. So that's what I would suggest to go for.
Josh Kaufman.
Yeah, completely agree with Noah's hierarchy of importance. You have to have power. If you want to, now, depending on, sometimes our power can be just infrequent enough to interrupt us if we're counting on a production. So there's two things you can do. You can either UPS up to accommodate your system, but in a system like mine, I have to basically triage what I can power up for, failover. So sometimes compartmentalizing things that you can back up to things that you can support are better, because the computers are actually not the biggest draw for your for UPS. Usually it's the monitors that get you.
Beautiful. All right. We have next question.
Next question is from Santa Bart Gaffney in Oconomowoc, and he's putting the pastor in the environment. Is it possible to capture stills of the podium, altar, and have your elderly pastor key to that?
Oh, it's obviously talking about Tony Mobley's discussion of that elderly pastor he needs to work with. Tony, what have you been thinking about lately?
Yeah, so that's exactly what I'm thinking, that I would get stills of the sanctuary, take those photos, and try to figure out how to make it appear as if she's actually in the sanctuary.
That'd be nice. That's a comfortable environment for her. I'm sure she'll like the way she looks, and I think it's just fabulous. She's only 92. What's the problem here? You can keep her active and engaged in her passion. Hopefully, well past 100. That would be the basic goal here. We've got about 4 minutes to go, so I wanted to just quickly. I know Guy is one of our equipment experts here, because he does so much work with this stuff. Guy, what are you seeing in terms of trends in gear for these kinds of things? Are you seeing anything that's kind of popping up out of the noise floor?
Well, I'm impressed with what everybody's already built. I mean, everybody's jobs and what they do is a little different. So, Mitch is heavily voiceover centric, as well as your setup. Josh is more web work from home, but REMI, I would call it. So you're actually controlling multiple things and same with Noah does a little bit. So everybody's a little different. I don't know about any trends. This thing that Jonas said the other day with, I'm going to pack up my cloud now, as we were on the ground in California having to pull up all the tape and wind up all the cables. And Jonas is like, okay, my cloud's all folded up. So, it just depends on what you're doing and how much gear you need. But I'll go ahead and jump into mine. Here's just another camera that's capturing this hallway that I'm in. And you can see that up above there is the big old Aperture P300. There's an auto pull there to the left. My camera's a Z-Cam. It's going 4K HDMI out into an NDI bird dog decoder or encoder, and then that goes down the hall into a Netgear M4250 switch. So down the hall, yeah, there's actually more stuff, but I'm not going to cut over down the hall. But that PTZ camera behind me looks like this. You can see that light actually has an egg crate on it. There's another light that you kind of saw over there next to me. That's my fill light. That's the ring light over there on a C-stand. Next to me, I have a mix panel 150 that can do any color of the rainbow, DMX controlled as well. And up above it is a little hair light. That's a little aperture light. And I'm using this quad LG display. There's one gaming laptop that's got the top two. And this is my Alienware. That's a hot rod computer. And then typically I would have something like a multi-view there. You got the Rodecaster there for audio. You can see the prompter, and you guys kind of saw the backside of that prompter. That's what was up above. Let me cut back to the camera view real quick. So that's what that big hood is right there. That's a 20-inch prompter. And then you can see below is my Mac Minis here. And that's the prompter view over there. And then Stream Deck. And then there's more Stream Decks that you can't see them, but they're down there. There's 4 Stream Decks here altogether. And I think that's about it. And then what you
I
don't
think you're
see
giving Hasmek a run for his money in the neatest setup today, Guy. Well done.
I can't. Look,
you're not going to show us behind the desk or below the desk.
As I cleaned up a little bit, I was like, I abandoned like this HDMI cable. It's not even plugged into anything. So there was like routes that were, not going to anything at the moment because I have some HDMI to NDI encoders for the ATEM. So that's how I can bring NDI into the ATEMs. And so some of that stuff's not hooked up at the moment. But I test a lot of gear. So again, this is a hallway. I actually have 3 other desks that I work at in a house that allow me to do different things. But this is more just for office hours.
I know my wife actually wants to thank Alex for running a behind-the-scenes look at rigs because that's one of the things that caused me to clean up. I was underneath my desk for the last part of the week, every free hour I had going, I never did coil this big, white, ugly cable down here that's in a rat's nest, literally looking thing behind. So at least everything got cleaned up. We're at the top of the hour. Thank you all very much for being here. I hope you all enjoyed that. Ask questions. Continue to do that both in after hours coming up next, also on the Office Hours Discord. And I think we're at the top of the hour, so let's go ahead and roll credits. Thank you all for being here today. We will see you tomorrow for the Standard Saturday show. Be well. Thank you all. Well done.
Thank you. Fantastic. Do you guys need some signal? Apparently. You have signal.